Right, gang, we're on. This is exciting. Hello, everyone. It's the start of HR Technologies 2026. Delighted, woo! Somebody did a woo, well done. Delighted to see you all here. Thanks for coming in. I've got to do, my usual sort of bit of housekeeping stuff, and then we're going to crack on with the day. For those of you that don't know me, my name's Christine Armstrong. I'm going to be emceeing the stage for the next 2 days. So whenever you need a break, a hug, a chat, here's some fantastic content, please come over and see us. I'm really, really excited about our agenda. We've got some fantastic speakers. I have to tell you that you must be on the app. I don't know, everybody's supposed to be on the apps these days, aren't you? But there are codes everywhere. It's the Learning and Technologies apps. People are going to tell you they want to meet you. You'll get all of the breakdown of the agenda there so you don't miss anything that you want to see. Today in this room, we've got Alex Mahon, very excited. We're doing an interview. She says I can ask her anything. She might regret it later, I don't know. But we're going to have a really good chat. I'm going to invite questions from the audience, so please get involved. We've got lots of AI stuff. We've got an agentic shift. We've got HR tech transformation at 10:30, then agentic shift, not shit, at 11:30. Good start to the day, gang, good start. All on camera, fantastic. We've got positive working culture at 1:50, HR in scaling organisations at 2:30, women's health at work at 3:10, and London's Gatwick sharing modern career pathways at 3:50. So please come and go, come and chat to us. Now, I've been asked to do a little bit of what are the big trends and what's going on at the moment. So I'll do a little bit of that, and then we'll get Alex up here without further ado. For anyone that doesn't know me, I'm a researcher into the trends of work. I look at all the big data, and then I interview people day in, day out, what's going on in their organisation, what's working for them, what's not, and put that together to try and help us find some answers to making work joyful and productive. So what I'd love you to start with is I'd like you to turn to the person next to you, not the person you came in with, right? Not the one that came through the door with you, somebody else. Say hi and tell them what's your one word about the world of work right now. I'm going to ask you some of them what that is. So say hi to someone, introduce yourself to someone you don't know. Turn backwards or forwards, it's okay, you can go backwards and forwards. You can tell me your word, because you're on your own. Hello, what's your name?
I'm Olivia.
Hi, Olivia, what's your word?
AI? AI?
AI, very good. Okay, come back to me. Shh. Okay, shh. Now, the most important thing is everybody who came alone now got somebody to have coffee with later. You've got a friend in the room. You are not now on your own. Okay, what were your words? Shout some out. This side said AI. Anybody else have AI as their word? Put your hand up. A couple, not others. Okay, what other words do we have? Complex and frenzy. Woo, yeah, I get that. Very good. What else? Busy. Yeah. Who else? Unknown. That's why you're here. By the end of tomorrow, we're going to know all the answers. It's all going to be resolved. You're fine. Any others? Any other words? Empowering. Nice. You're having a good day. Love that. You got your coffee. Right, that's super. Anyone else? Transformation. You've got your coffee too. We've got some lovely positive words. I'm very impressed. Okay, well, let's have a look at a different word. It's not quite as positive as some of those. These guys obviously hadn't had their coffee. So this is Edelman's Trust Barometer 2026. So put your hand up. Who knows the Edelman Trust Barometer? Have you seen it before? It comes out every year. They've been doing it for like 20 years. And every year they kind of do a state of the world. Who do we trust? Governments, businesses, organizations, each other. What's going on? Well, their word of 2026, prepare yourselves, it's not cheerful, is insularity. Reluctance to trust anyone who's different to you. Oh, Rebecca just nodded, went, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I saw that. What we're seeing, and it really plays out at work, and it's really important that we understand it, is a breakdown in what we call the second level of connections, or what we call weak ties. So we are closer to and more invested in people who are very close to us, our immediate family. Parents spend more time with their own kids. We spend more time with people who are our best friends, who almost by definition we kind of already agree with, we know what they think. We also spend quite a lot of time in online communities and groups where common interests get together. So other people who largely agree with us. But where we don't spend time anymore is in clubs and neighborhoods and places where we come across people who don't agree with us at all. And just as an example, and this is recorded, so let's be careful where we share this, but like my next door neighbor, Amanda, talks to dead people. Like that is literally her job. So she's a medium, which isn't really my thing, but I love her to pieces, right? And I love talking to her. And it's really good for me to spend time with somebody who's got a completely different worldview, who will go and say, "Hi, Amanda, how are you?" And she says, "Oh, that poor soldier was walking through the woods behind the houses last night, and he died in the war." And it's very strange for me, because I don't think like that, but I love it, and it's really good for us. But as a society, we're doing less and less of that, getting together with people who don't think what we do, who don't share our political views, who maybe make our lives a bit more complicated. Now, why is this? Oh, fallen over the table, it's only the first session. Now, why is this relevant in a world of work? Well, let's have another look at some of these Edelman numbers. So what they're telling us, and this is not the Gen Z, this is not just the kids, this is everyone, okay? I'm going to fall off the stage. I would rather change departments than report to a manager who has different values to me. 42%. We expect to share views with our leaders at work, and that is really, really difficult for organizations to do. If my project team leader had different political beliefs, I would put less effort into making them succeed. And this is why, when I'm interviewing people about work, they're saying, we are spending hours trying to deal with things that we didn't think we would ever have to deal with. One HR leader said they literally spent 2 days trying to craft a statement on what was going on between Israel and Palestine, using the correct words, trying not to offend anybody in the business, agonizing about every single word of this. They don't have any operations there. They just was under so much pressure to put out a statement. And this sense that it's all a little bit uneasy is showing up in other ways too. I was with a big consultancy last week, and they said that one of their leaders has she's like really well reviewed as a leader. She's kind of got like her fun sort of go-to question to start meetings. And she says, "What did you have for dinner last night?" And they've had a complaint from someone saying, "Well, actually, that's an invasion of my privacy. I don't want to share that." And they're like, what do we do with that? Where does it all go? So we're hoping that over the next couple of days, we're going to unpick some of the human side of this, the start of it, but also against the backdrop of some of the tech, which we'll have a look at in a minute. Now, in terms of leaders, I wanted to share something else which interested me. You'll put your hand up, you all know Gallup's annual engagement survey, don't you? Yeah, you all know that. Yeah, you all see this. This obviously just came out, and what we've got on the global picture is an average team of 10. We've got 2 people, woohoo, fully engaged, raring to go. Excellent, good news. We got 6 people who are like, the day will end eventually. It's fine, I can get through it. I might be looking for another job. You've got almost 2 who are actively wanting to cause the organization trouble, who are in your way, who would do you down. That's the global picture. Somewhat tragically, the European picture is worse, and the UK is even worse than the Europe picture. So Europe, we've got 12% fully engaged. For the UK, it's 10. So 1 in 10 employees feeling fully engaged. So all of you who've got better engagement scores than that, give yourselves a little pat on the back. It's brilliant. You're doing a great job. You're way ahead. But there is a sense that this is hard to manage. There's another complexity to this that's really interesting, which is about leaders. Do you know when you have really small children and people say to you, they say, "The days are long, but the years are short." And you think, piss off. I don't want to hear it. But the leaders, if you take that thought, that's kind of what's going on with leaders at the moment. Because when they ask them, are you thriving if you're a leader? Do you feel like you're thriving in your life? And do you think you'll be thriving in 5 years' time? They're much more likely to say yes, okay? So they're much more likely, they're the green bot on here, they're much more likely to say that they're thriving. But, sorry, got them in a muddle. So they're much more likely to say they're thriving, it's 45%. But then, when we look at their daily emotions at work, they're also much more likely to say that they get angry, that they feel sad, that they feel lonely, and a little bit more likely to say that they're stressed. So there's also a little bit of a contradiction. We've got leaders in our organizations who know that they're doing well, who feel broadly positive about the direction of travel, but are really struggling day to day with sadness and anger and loneliness and stress. And I think when we think about our use of technology, we have to really think carefully about how we're using it and how we make sure that it's helping people do their jobs better and feel better, and not perhaps getting between people. I was going to show you a bit of data about that. I haven't put it in. So I haven't put it in, but I'll tell you what it says. So there's a lovely piece that also comes out of Edelman, not from the Trust Barometer, that says that about 50% of people in the UK reject AI. They don't want to deal with it. They just don't want to engage with it at all. Now, I don't think that's totally surprising when we've seen a lot of the messaging that's come out from the tech community around 30% job losses, about the impact that it's going to have on society. So I don't think we should be surprised by that. But I think as leaders, when we're thinking about how we introduce new technology and how we talk about it, we have to be really, really thoughtful about it. Because you've got people who are massively enthusiastic, and you've got a lot of people who just don't trust why it's being introduced, how it's being used, or whether, in fact, it's being introduced as a way to get them out of their jobs. And we're seeing great case studies come out where organizations are launching fantastic products, doing all of the right stuff, training everybody, taking them on the journey, consulting, rolling out, and still they're getting enormous pockets of resistance. And in interviews that I'm doing, a lot of people are saying things like, you know what, we're under huge pressure to use the AI. We got employees saying that they feel that they're being force-fed it in lots of ways. But actually, when we're rolling it out, it's much, much more complicated than we've expected. So, for example, you know, we're being urged to use it to combine really complex reports and do analysis. And when we do that, it's brilliant, except there's always one or two things that aren't quite right. And the time it takes to then go back through those reports is longer than it might have been to do it in the first place. So as we're rolling it out, some of the things I want to talk about over the next 2 days is how do we roll this out right? How do we make sure that employees are really on board and are going to use it? And what questions do we ask? Because you'll be told today about loads of amazing bits of tech that you can introduce into your businesses that will do fantastic things. And the question that I would always ask you to consider is, how am I going to use this to build those connections at work? Because if we don't have connected workforces, then we're really just waiting for the robots potentially to come. Because the difference in productivity, in discretional effort, in people's tenure is really based on how seen they feel at work. So anything that gets in the way of us potentially seeing people at work is really, really something to think about. That's all I'm going to say on it. Okay, right. Now, today is your moment. So in a study of senior leaders, 97% said that strategic thinking, the ability to focus deliberately on long-term priorities, is really important. Slightly more said they never, ever have time to do it, okay? So these are your 2 days. You've turned up, you've given your time, and we're really happy to see you. What I'd love you to do is turn back to the person you said hello to, not the one you came with, okay? This is the new person. And just say, what do I want to think about while I'm here? What do I want to get out of today? Just take a minute and have that conversation now. You can go forwards and backwards. There's somebody behind you now. Okay, come back to me. Come back to me. Okay, does anyone want to share what it is that they want to think about? Who wants to share it? I'll just say it through my mic, because I don't think we've got a handheld yet. Who wants to share it? What are you here to do? What are you thinking about? Yeah, go on. Bit of inspiration. Anything particular? Yeah. Connectivity. Yeah, love that. So how do we connect people? How do we get them to use the systems? Yeah, great. Anybody else thinking that? Any hands up for that? Oh yeah, you want to share yours? I want to. Yeah, go on. So what do you want to share? What's your goal? No, no. Ooh, digital decision analytic tool. That sounds great. Yeah, go on. That'd be great. We'll get your mic.
Thank you. Seeing chief executives or leaders making decisions, taking actions, but not actually unearthing how those decisions are coming about through the rest of the organization and what outcomes that brings by not check balancing those. And it's through time that always happens.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see what my ideas might bring, having coming from a leadership and business services perspective.
Okay. Okay, what's your name?
Simon.
Simon. So if you want a digital analytic tool, go and have a chat with Simon about it afterwards. Brilliant. He's right there. Thanks very much. Who else has got a goal for today? Who else has got things they want to discuss? Lady in the middle.
As someone still starting out in their early career,
Yeah.
I want to kind of see a few different things. And in the current job market, I want to see which has the most potential for growth and potentially where I'd want to position myself in the next few years. So just get a few ideas and meet a few people would be my goal for today.
I love that. I'm going to put that on Alex's agenda. That's one we need to definitely cover, Alex. So some advice for the next generation. Love that. Thank you so much. Right, any others? Oh, Who else? Oh, yeah, lady on the end here.
Hi. Dare I to ask this question, that what HR's role in the AI age?
Ooh.
What would the HR world look like when I is in full blown?
Okay, what does HR look like in an AI age? Brilliant question, thank you. I think there's a gentleman just back there as well. Love that question.
Hi there. I'm particularly interested in two things. One is technology, what does it offer? How can we use that? But on the other side, what are the really human skills that we need to build up and keep developing, because AI will never do them, and that's where we are needed, so that we can then use AI as an assistant.
Great, I love that. So what are our human skills? Alex, I think we put that on our agenda as well, something that we need to explore. Brilliant, one more, or are we all done? One more? These are great goals. Yeah, go on then, last one.
Will HR be replaced by AI?
Will HR be replaced by AI? Okay, let's take a quick poll in the room. Hands up, who thinks HR might get replaced by AI? Hands up. It's quite a small number, I'd say 2 or 3%. Who doesn't? Who thinks there's a role for HR in an AI world? Yes! I think we'll take the positive, but we'll explore it through the days. Thanks for asking. Okay, it is my great pleasure. Sorry, I'm not trying to move sides. It's my great pleasure now to introduce our first speaker, and we're going to have a fireside chat. We're going to talk to each other, and then we're going to open it up to you, so any of you in the room that have a question. I'm delighted to introduce Alex Mahon. Now, I'm sure most of you know her. She's got a CBE. She's the former CEO of Channel 4, and she's now the CEO of Superstruct Entertainment, which she's going to be telling us about. So please would you welcome Alex to the stage. Hi, nice to see you. Right, Alex, did you get all those questions? Do you know what we're answering now?
I don't know if I can answer all those questions.
Well, let's give it
but
a
I'll
whirl.
try.
Let's give it a whirl. So I thought we could start off. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about your career, and maybe you could tell us about some of the triumphs, but I also think a few tragedies are always interesting, you know, things that maybe didn't go entirely to plan. So let's have some highlights and maybe some things you think, you know.
Okay. So I'm fourth-time CEO, so I'm in my fourth CEO job, which is not to say that I was rubbish at all of them, but obviously I've done a few in media and technology and now in live entertainment. But originally I wanted to be an astronaut, at which I have not succeeded.
You did a PhD though, right?
Yeah, I did a PhD in physics, which now everyone finds really interesting, but trust me, when you're doing a PhD in physics, nobody If you turn to people in the pub and say, yeah, I'm doing physics, they literally turn away.
I-
Whereas if you're working in television, they're like, yes, let's talk about television. Apart from your neighbour, Amanda, she probably wouldn't
Just
want
wants to talk to the dead people. I
want
think
to
you could make
dead
a show
people.
about her potentially.
Yeah, she sounds
As a
great.
soldier.
So yeah, there's lots of jobs I've got. You know, I've been made redundant. I've like gone into a job and the department's got shut down like 2 months afterwards. I've like left a job and then thought, oh my God, how do I pay the mortgage? So there are, but it doesn't look like that on LinkedIn, does it? I always think like
Never.
LinkedIn's like the grown-ups version of Instagram where everything sort of looks perfect. But I think it is important to say that the truth is it never feels like that at the time, does it? I think you can knit it together to make it look like it was all great, but in between things, and I've got 4 kids as well, so that's like,
How old are your kids?
they're all teenagers. They're between 14 and 18, and when I had 4 toddlers, I thought that was the difficult bit, but it turns out, for those of you who have teenagers, or really have just experienced teenagers on the tube, teenagers are much, much worse than toddlers, aren't they?
They're really difficult.
Yeah, I'd swap each teenager for 4 toddlers.
Yeah.
So that it seemed like a good idea at the time to
Yeah.
have 4 children.
Yeah, I have 3 teenagers at home. I think we could talk about that separately. I've got a lot of words on the subject. Okay, now tell us about the red thread. So what takes you from doing a PhD in physics through to running Channel 4 and now Superstructs? I mean, how do you, I mean, that seems like a very zigzag path.
Yeah, I think it's sort of interesting, and it ties to when you were talking about HR and is it needed in AI. Like, I studied advanced science, and actually that is a path which is about spending quite a lot of time on your own, and all, I mean, you're with people, but you're studying by yourself or doing experiments by yourself. And it's a route where you know more and more about a smaller and smaller area. And I realized that those things are not what suits me. So I quite like being with people. I like the difficult complexities of people. And I'm perfectly happy when I know like 70% of something. So I'm always, you know, I don't need to know 100% about it. And I like the fact that you can learn about lots of different areas and then how you put them together. So I'm always trying to say to young people or people in their careers, like, can you think about how your brain works?
Yeah.
Like that, because they're really different skill
Yeah.
sets. So I had to accept that I probably wouldn't be a great scientist.
Astronaut?
An astronaut, yeah. You had to be really fit to be an astronaut.
fine,
and I
fine.
wasn't.
Did you discover any talents or any particular things that you didn't know you were good at as you've gone through your career? Have you discovered things saying, actually, I'm quite good at that, and I didn't notice it before?
Yeah, I think one is like being able to add up and being good with people. That sort of combination of left brain, right brain
Yeah.
is quite unusual.
Yeah.
Like, again, people tend to be one or the other. So being able to bring those things together,
Yeah.
which for a long time I thought was like, oh, I'm not really one thing or the other. Now I like say that's a real advantage.
Yeah.
So that was maybe useful. To be logical and maybe good at emotional
Yeah.
is quite rare in
Okay.
leadership.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about your leadership style, because I found a quote about you and it said, not cozy consensus. And I thought, oh, I like that. That's interesting.
I'm going to
Tell
need
me.
to look this quote up afterwards. So maybe it was AI.
Maybe it was.
I'm not sure. I'm not like nasty as a leader, but I'm not sure cozy consensus always gets you to the right answer. So I think like being a CEO, it looks really good, and obviously you get paid well and you get a bit of glory when things go well. But the truth is that most decisions that you get to make, and you'll know this with your own leaders, you don't really get the easy decisions. Like the decisions that are obvious or where the answers are clear go to someone else, as they should. So you sort of get the decisions which are, it's not obvious what the answer is, or it's really risky. They're mostly 50-50s, aren't they? Or they're massive risks to take. And you can't necessarily reach those decisions with consensus. You do have to ask people, you do have to be prepared for people to challenge you from my style of leadership. You do have to like read the room and listen to people, but then you have to decide. You can't ask other people to do it. That's literally what they're paying you for.
Yeah.
And most of the time as a leader, when you get that decision, you need to make that decision quite fast because you're holding up someone else.
Yeah.
So you're holding
Yeah.
up, but you know, by the time it makes to endless PowerPoint through this layer and that pre-meeting, everyone is like, what have they decided? Like, we're waiting to do something. So you also have to be speedy. So that's probably not cozy consensus.
No, but I
it
like
is
that.
trying to
That's just real.
bring people together
Yeah.
of like, okay, what do we have to do? Why do we have to do it? Okay,
Yeah.
now Let's talk about it, but then one of us has to make the decision.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you think that's the hardest thing about being CEO, or are there other things that are challenging that people maybe aren't aware of if they're not CEO?
I think, like nowadays, so a lot of what you've talked about is the trends, and you know, we've seen things change, haven't we? You can't now be a leader. In the olden days, like when people wore bowler hats or worked in the city, you could be a leader who was unknowable, right? Who like came to the office and did their work and then went home and you didn't know anything about them. And I don't think that's realistic nowadays. I mean, you referred to a lot of the Edelman Trust Barometer. And the truth is that people want more from their employer because they're one of the few places where they still have trust. So they don't trust the government. Sadly, they don't always trust the media.
Yeah.
They don't trust big corporations. They will still have some trust in their employer. And so the demands for what they want from their employer have gone up. And I agree with all of you, put your hands up and said HR will still be needed, because like it's really needed because people expect so much from the workplace now, almost parenting in some ways. So as a leader, you have got to be both more authentic to people, and you've got to be more known, and people need to know what you stand for. And that's more complicated to navigate.
Okay, so as somebody who obviously worked with a lot of HR people, what does a great HR person bring you? If you had like if you designed your ideal...
I feel like all the HR people who've ever worked with me are going to magically find this online. I'm going to be in a lot of trouble.
Combine them, like mix all their great skills into the most ideal combination.
I think there's like the basics. Does the stuff work? Like the high bulb or the whatever other system that's being pitched here today. And in a lot of companies, the basics is quite difficult. Because you've got legacy tech spaghetti and IT don't want to work on that, and it's no one's priority, and nobody understands why they have to spend money on an HR information system, right? So, but you do need that to work, because otherwise how can you make any decisions without any data? And employees get really annoyed when their payroll's wrong and this hasn't been sorted out. So that's like, it sounds like a basic execution layer. But actually it's quite hard for a lot of HR professionals because they're not tech specialists. So I think that sounds like a banal thing, but it's actually quite a lot of work in organizations, especially legacy organizations. And then like for me, I want someone who cares about the employees and can tell how they feel, you know, which could be a survey, but it could be a kind of a point of view, and is thinking about how can we advance culturally as an organization. Like the ideal would be that combination, but you know, it's hard to be all things.
Sure, of course. Okay, so let's have a little think about Generation Z, which you've done some research into and which I've done research into. And when we're thinking about HR leaders, one of the challenges that they talk to me a lot about is how do I manage these guys? Because they show up at work differently to how we expect. So what did you find in your research about this group?
So I did 3 big sets of proprietary research about them, sort of under Channel 4, because I was really interested in the question of what is it like for them in Britain today, not what do we think it's like, or what does the Daily Mail say it's like, or how do I feel with having like so many children at home, but really what is that like? What's the impact of social media on them? How do they feel about their prospects? And you know, of course, what are they watching on television? So it informed bits of the business, but it was also about the workplace. And I think it's important to say that the 2 big things that have changed that are social media and the pandemic. So the kind of switch of working from home and a whole kind of generation who lost out on coming into the workplace is super key. And you'll all see this yourselves. So at first, I think the biggest switch that we learned about was demands. Like as an employer, you sort of think of demands because we can't really see the age of everyone, but some of us who are older just went to work and got on with things and felt like we had to suck everything up. But nobody really told us to complain about anything, so it didn't feel dreadful. And now there's a switch, which is people saying, well, that's not right, that's not okay, I'm not having that. And I think from a communications perspective, a desire to understand the why. And this is the sort of social media impact. So as CEOs, you're often saying, well, we've decided today we will be going to the HR Technologies Conference where the sound will be dreadful, but there'll be some really good people and we'll go. The Gen Z would go, why? Like, and they expect you to, as leaders, say, well, I've thought about it. There are 3 conferences we can go to. I've looked at them all. This is the one I've picked. And it's really going to be great, and it will be a special day out. maybe that's not how you feel right now, that's a special day out, but you know, they expect you to explain your thinking.
Yeah.
And that's partly because they've always had access to that information and that thinking. They've lived in a world where you can double click on anything and you can always research more. And I think that's a really big switch as a leader, because your first impression is like, why are you asking questions? Just be like, happy you've got a job. And then you have to think through that, okay, they're not necessarily challenging your decision. They may ask more questions about it, but they've grown up in a world where you can post comments.
Yeah.
And you can say, I don't know if I agree with that, or you can have a point of view. And as an employer, that's a real switch. And as a leader, it's an educational lesson and give insight into why you decided something. That was the biggest thing in the workplace, I think.
So what have you learned about managing this generation? So aside having to give them the why, what else have you learned works well? Because you must work with a lot of young people in the jobs that you do.
Yeah, I think that, again, there's a complex dichotomy for them, isn't it? It's harder than ever to find work.
Yeah.
It's harder than it ever was, or it's different.
Yeah.
There aren't permanent careers in individual corporations. Maybe there are in really big places where they take graduate trainees on, but generally there are.
Yeah.
So it's hard for young people to find a job, even after a degree and endless debt, and yet they've got much more specific demands and views than we had. So I think that's really also a credit to them. Like, they want to work for companies where they believe in the values and they know what they are. So, of course, some companies like Channel 4, of course, has values. But lots of companies who never thought about their values before are now desperately trying to get someone to tell them what they are, because young people have got demand. They do care about social responsibility. And they also are thinking about their careers and what they want to do and what they don't want to do in a much more proactive way than our generation ever was.
Yeah, sure.
So I think it's being really clear and explicit about what your company stands for, about what you will and you won't do, and about what they can expect from you. Like, I would say, well, you're going to be here, you're here for this period, the skills you build up, the knowledge you build up, you take that with you. That doesn't belong to us. You know, here's the what you get from us. But that contract needs to be much more explicit both ways than perhaps it used to be, which is you get a job, get paid.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's absolutely right. Okay, changing subjects a little bit, changing gear. I'll open this up to the audience, so if you've got questions, I'll come back to you in a second. But just having a think about women at work, or maybe even D&I more broadly, and Trump and diversity hires and all of this. What are you seeing going on in organizations now? What do you think?
So, I spent a lot of time on this, care quite deeply about equality of opportunity. And obviously at Channel 4, I did a lot on different things, Paralympics and disability, race and equity in the workplace, and particularly on women's health in the workplace. And hopefully no one will leave when I say the word menopause. But you used to be able to never speak about menopause, and now you really can't get through a day without someone banging on about their menopause. So that's like a big shift, and a positive shift, I think, for women's health in the workplace. Unfortunately, I think the reality is we are seeing companies step away from equality and diversity quite significantly as a reaction to what's happened in the US. I think companies that still care. I think big corporations, as you know, have had to strip out, big corporations with business with the American government, so the Big Four, etc., have had to strip out equality from their wording and diversity from their wording, which is very scary, quite Big Brother. And people who maybe never believed in it in the first place but were doing a bit of lip service are like, oh, delightful, don't need to bother about that anymore. Overall, I still remain optimistic because I find, there's lots of women taking gender, women who are prepared to speak out, and lots of men who are very helpful. Lots of men who have wives, who have daughters, who really care. But I think it is a difficult time if you're trying to even things up in society.
You're optimistic it'll resolve in time?
Yeah, but I am an optimist. So, I am optimistic. But, that's partly because I started off in physics. In physics, at the current rate, it would take 250 years for things to even up. So, with the workplace, it's much better than that. But I think it behooves us all who are in positions that are more senior to keep speaking out about these issues and keep trying to make change.
Yeah, okay. So you were sort of lauded for embracing social media when you were at Channel 4, doing lots on, across social platforms. When you look at the world of AI, what do you think businesses should be thinking about? What's on your agenda? What are you watching? I mean, you're good on trends. You're good of how do we use this stuff? What's coming next? What do we need to be looking at?
I thought it was really interesting your point in the intro about people saying we use it to make these reports, but it takes us more time to unpick than it does. And I'm sure you all do this. When I get the first thing back from Claude or ChatGPT, first glass, oh, that looks amazing. And then if I leave it, if I print it,
Poke it a bit.
and I leave it for a day and come back to it, I'm like, oh, it's like not very good. Let me like red pen this. But if I sent it off by email then, I would think it looks amazing and someone else reading it would be, it's a bit rubbish. And I get emails from people and I think, oh, it looks good, like really in-depth work. And then when I start reading it and see the M dashes or the specific emboldening, I'm like, oh, I see how they produce this. So even now I'm finding it like quite hard passing through stuff to go, is this your opinion? Or have you fed everything into an AI tool and it's created a précis? And where is the thinking? So I'm having to challenge myself on that. And then when I get stuff from team members, I'm finding that quite tough. So I'm trying to be really specific about here are the areas where it's definitely saving time.
Yeah.
Like if I've done the pre-work and the actual thinking and I'm saying pretty it up,
Yeah.
great. However, you know, we have seen things come on in leaps and bounds. So
Yeah.
when you go to coding, can you teach something to go, great. I mean, amazing, massive, massive time save. I haven't seen massive changes yet in insight and analytics and visualization, which is the area I'm most excited about, because I believe that we're not particularly advanced at some of those skills. So for me, it's like watching brief. But do I believe generally that a lot of extra work can be done? Yes. Do I believe it gets rid of human interaction? No. Do I think we'll need more skills in winnowing, in human curation, in distinguishing between slop and good thinking? Yes, I think we will. But it will change the workplace.
I mean, in some ways, when you're reading those emails and processing, is this from somebody's head or is it from their AI? We're actually adding to the cognitive load, aren't we? And what does that then do to that human relationship? I mean, a leader was telling me recently, they sent out quite a big announcement to their leadership team, and they got 3 emails back very quickly that were 4 paragraphs long. The paragraphs were all of the same length from 3 different people, and they just thought, shit, they all just put that statement into AI and then just sent me back what the response should be. And that breaks trust with those people.
Yeah, and it's quite dissonant, right?
Yeah,
now
really
you're trying to go,
dissonant.
what's from the machine, what's from the human?
Yeah.
So I don't know, will it lead to more in-person meetings in a kind of perverse reaction? But yeah, the email I was reading 2 days ago, I was like, oh, this has been generated by AI, so what's your conclusion?
Yeah.
If I just asked you for one sentence, what would you actually give me?
Yeah, exactly. I think there's a real question about how we maintain those relationships, because in that instance, that leads like none of those other people know that 2 other people did it as well. So actually that's and then how do you respond to that? Because it could be quite a difficult interaction. Yeah, fantastic. Okay, so I'm going to ask you one more question and then I'm going to open it up to our lovely floor and we'll get a roving mic out there. What's the best piece of careers advice that anyone's ever given you?
Well, I'll give you the bit, I don't know if anyone gave it to me, but I'll give you the bit that I give people, which is like learn to reset. Like things go wrong. Like you think you're going to get that job, or you think you're going to get that promotion, or you think you're going to pay off the mortgage or whatever, and it doesn't happen. Or you have to go, or you have to make a difficult choice, or you have to walk out, and the biggest thing in life is to just learn to do a kind of hard reset and go, okay, this is the situation, what do I do next? Just that, what's the next foot I put in front of the other? Then, because you will see people all the time get completely derailed by that and angry.
Yeah.
And actually, maybe sometimes you should be angry, but maybe like be angry later, like just get going again.
How do you reset? What do you do to reset yourself?
I just lie on the sofa watching television and drinking wine. Like most people.
Solid answer.
Yeah, maybe some crisps.
Yeah.
That's like, I'm not up at 3 a.m. working on my upper arms.
Yeah.
That's what I actually do. But I just think that, like, if something major happens or you have a switch, like to just go, okay, it hasn't worked out the way I intended.
Yeah.
But now I need to reset things and do the next thing. And that can be hard because other people have got opinions, and your mum's got an opinion, your friends have got an opinion, and your ex-colleagues have got an opinion, but you just got to keep going.
Yeah.
You've got to worry about you. So
do you consciously know that? Do you think, okay, this is a reset moment, I need to go on the sofa
because normally
for a
things
bit?
have gone a bit wrong.
Yeah. And you're like, okay, need a bit of time. It's going to take a bit of
I
time.
just think people don't talk about that. They talk about the things that went perfectly.
I know. I always think people are much more interested in the things that went wrong because we can relate to that strongly. Right. Questions from the audience. Who would like to ask Alex a question? Lady in the front row. Let me see if I can get you a mic, even not a bike. You don't have to cycle anywhere. The lady's coming. Hold on. She's on her way.
She's looking for the mic.
She's here. Thank you. This lady at the front. Sorry, left. Yep. Oh, you're right.
Hello?
Yes.
So you raised an interesting point when you were talking about women at work and how people are talking more about menopause. I work in cybersecurity, which is very male dominated, and the reality is they're either my age or older. I never get other people younger than me. And so I'd like to understand from you, in terms of trends that you're seeing, in where the term menopause, that space, and where this is going to take women, because we do a lot around wellness. And does that fall into that bracket, or are we going to see some transformation where, you know, we'll openly talk about it and have webinars and seminars and maybe a day off or 5 days off? Who knows?
Yeah, so we did at Channel 4 in 2018, we did the first menopause policy for the workplace, like you have a pregnancy policy or a maternity policy. And that was a big deal, and it got worldwide press coverage, which I was quite surprised by because I was the face of it, so I didn't expect to be the face of the menopause in like Brazil. But there you go. And then lots of workplaces rolled it out, so thousands and tens of thousands of workplaces, tens and hundreds of thousands of employees in the UK. And it made a massive difference because it was saying, like, this only goes on for a few years. It happens to 50% of the population. You can use your sickness coverage. We'll get like buddies in the workplace. We'll do seminars and explain things. So I would say to your it's quite normal now in UK employers to have it. So I would say to your workplace to just put a policy in place. It's all public, the policies. Later we went on to do a pregnancy loss policy, which was more complicated actually. But I would just say it's a normal demand for a workplace to now have that as a policy, and the dam has been broken. Maybe that's a bad phrase for the menopause. The dam has been broken in terms of that, and it's sort of standardized. And I just tell them to put it in place.
Fantastic.
But it helps the conversation, yes.
Good. Got another question. Thank you.
Hi, Alex. Thank you for that. I had a question about the AI-generated responses to your first-line leaders and sort of what goes out. We work with a PE-backed data company who've got exactly the same problem. And what they started to do was ask people to be very honest about any communication where they'd used AI to generate part of the answer. Do you think that's potentially a way to go to reduce that friction internally?
Yeah, I think it could be, but the truth is that AI is in everything, right? So what's spell check? What's grammar check? So I think it's hard, like once it becomes like a pervasive layer through everything in meeting minutes, to get people to do that. I wonder if the truth is to push more for opinion and conversation, and just accept that it will be used for a lot of communications. I definitely see it, because I work in a business where people speak in different languages. I definitely see its use more when people want to send me an email in English. And I don't think I should be discouraging that, because the truth is I don't speak all the languages of people who are my direct reports. So I'm not sure that would really help.
There's some interesting research came out of a university in Holland, and they asked students to do projects with AI and not with AI. They did various versions of it. But when they asked the people who'd been allowed to use AI to tell them where they'd used it and where they hadn't, they were unable to they just couldn't remember. They just didn't know. It's like scrambling an egg. You can't then say, well, this bit was AI and this added this. They couldn't distinguish.
Yeah.
And so there's something maybe about how our brains work, especially if we're using it a lot, where we almost don't even.
Yeah, and I do worry about that. Like, can I do the research without it? Do I remember how to do it? Do I remember how to source check? I mean, interestingly, teenagers will often say to you, don't use it. Like, don't use it, because they're trained to not use it for school. So, and they get their essays get AI checked, etc. So they'll just be like, no, if you use that, you won't know what you're doing.
Okay, I've got a lady here with a question.
Hi, Alex. Thank you. My question, actually, from the description you said, you send out a question and 3 of your direct report come back with similar kind of emails using potentially AI. So my question is, do you think AI supported or boosting human creativity, or do you think AI curbs it?
Yeah, I think that was Christine who got the emails back, or a colleague of Christine's. I think, so I always want to say surely human creativity will be better than AI, but the truth is I suspect that's wrong. Like, why wouldn't machine learning creativity bring us advances? I think you have to question what does one mean by creativity. So at the moment what we see is LLMs, which are just language-based, right? And they're based on convergence, not divergence. So they take the sum of, not really human learning, they take the sum of what's on the internet and then go, knowing what's on the internet, which we know not to be truly fabulous, what would that point us towards the best answer being? Whereas truly great creativity tends to be something you haven't seen before. It's divergent. If you think of one of the greatest adverts of all time, like the Guinness horses in the black and white waves, like AI is not going to come up with that, is it? Because like none of us had ever seen that before. So I think if you want truly extraordinary creativity, you have to think about, okay, what can you use as these tools for inputs, but do you need a human brain to be thinking divergently of what does the next thing look like? But could the machine create the output of that much more easily than humans once you've worked out what the idea is? Probably. So I think it's a mixed and complex answer.
Jimmy Carr has a great line on this. He says, AI is a great cover band. And I just think it's a really nice way of describing it, actually. It kind of wedged in my head.
Yeah, because it's a mashup.
Yeah, yeah, fantastic, thank you. I think there's a lady here in an orange top. If we've got the mic and go forwards, that would be great.
Thanks, Alex. It's been brilliant listening to you. The question I have is just how do you think about helping leaders who are just super stretched and they are like really struggling to manage tensions, drive revenue, but care about your team, you know, cut costs and drive productivity, but culture is really important. Go after AI, but creativity is important and innovation is important. How do you think about those tensions on these leaders in a world where actually the change is just accelerating and it's never going to slow down in your organizations and beyond?
Great question.
I mean, I don't know all the answers, but I guess two things. One is a general leadership, that being, you can be kind but also direct. So sometimes one thinks I just have to be nice. And if you're nice, then you're often not telling someone what's not working, what's wrong. So how can you be kind and benevolent and have a good atmosphere, but also really direct and clear about what needs doing? And in general, leaders only regret not having done things fast enough. Like in general, we know the right answer, right? But there are all these problems that get in the way of doing it. So one is, I think, that of like atmospheric coaching and direction. And the other is to try and be really clear about what will make the most difference. Because it is overwhelming. There's always too much to do. There's always too many emails. Like we all feel that when we go home at night, right? And that's one of the things about Gen Z. They're just like, I'm not doing that. Because they've like seen us doing that and they're like, that hasn't worked out. So I think being really clear about what are the biggest things that will make a difference. And there are like 1,000 schemes for that, like eat the frog or rocks, pebble, gravel, like what are the big things? And the tendency is to not work on the big things that will make the most difference, because they're usually the most difficult and they're usually the hardest to work out where you start with them. So you just get going with all the things that are in your inbox and all the meetings that are already there and all the bits that feel like work, and they are work, but they're not the biggest things. And how can one coach managers and leaders to make a difference and an impact on the really big things, and switch between short-term, medium-term, long-term, you know, and do that all the time, because that's what's exhausting as a cognitive load, is how you do that switching. But I think being clear about a framework for doing it does help.
Yeah, love that. Thanks very much. Okay, we've got 20 seconds left, so I think we probably ought to stop there. Alex, that was so brilliant. Thank you so much. Wasn't that amazing? Can we have a round of applause? I've took so much out of that. Thank you so much for coming. That was great.
Are you staying here?
I'm staying, so you get
Bye.
to leave. Bye. It was nice to see you.
It was lovely.